Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please be seated. I'm John Leahy, the president of Quinnipiac University, and it's a pleasure for me to welcome all of you here today for this most joyous and indeed historic occasion. And I want to add a special welcome to our guest of honor, taoiseach Enda Kenny. I'd also like to acknowledge some special guests that are also with us here this afternoon. Ireland's Ambassador to the United States, Ann Anderson, Consul General of Ireland, Barbara Jones, Deputy Consul General, Anna McGillicuddy, our State Senator, President Pro Tem of the Senate, Martin Looney, and member of the town of Hamden Town Council, Joe McDonough. And again, a warm welcome to all of you. At this time, I would ask our Provost and Executive Vice President, Mark Thompson, our University Trustee, Hugh Keefe, and taoiseach Enda Kenny to please stand for the conferral of the honorary degree. Taoiseach Enda Kenny. In many ways, your story is the story of the new Ireland. It is the story of a leader who has guided his country through its most difficult times, yet has been a passionate defender of the rights of others, whether in Ireland, the United States, Africa, or the European Union. You were born in Castlebar in County Mayo and graduated from St. Patrick's College of Education in Dublin. In 1975, Fine Gael chose you as a candidate to succeed your father, Henry Kenny, who had recently died. You were elected with 52% of the vote and became, at 24, the youngest member of the Irish Parliament. In 1994, you were named Minister of Tourism under the coalition government. And during your tenure, Ireland saw significant growth in tourism business, and you are credited with the rejuvenation of Dublin's St. Patrick's Day Parade. In 2003, you were elected leader of the party and chief opposition to the then sitting government. Your leadership of Fine Gael embodied the new Ireland. As early as 2007, you advocated civil partnerships for same-sex couples. You also were a passionate defender of civil rights and consumer rights. In 2011, having survived a challenge to your leadership within your party, you won a decisive victory, and Fine Gael became the largest party in the Irish government for the first time. You formed a coalition with the Labour Party and became taoiseach, or Prime Minister. You assumed office during the most difficult economic period in Ireland's history. The economy was under virtual collapse, and its banking institutions were declared insolvent. You prescribed strong medicine for corrective action. You raised taxes, cut government services. To set an example for the rest of the nation, you slashed your own salary and that of your fellow ministers. As a result of your actions, Ireland today has the fastest growing economy in the European Union. Your story, however, is not solely a story of an extraordinary manager of the economy. Even while Ireland was going through its most severe economic crisis, you did not forget the poor, the dispossessed, and the immigrant. As taoiseach, you have championed the cause of the immigrant. You understood the pain of immigration that has beset the Irish people since the days of the Great Hunger. Even while your government was under severe financial strain, you ensured that there was proper funding for immigrant centers in the United States and elsewhere, so that those young Irish who were forced to leave their country as a result of the economic recession would be cared for and nurtured in New York, Chicago, Boston, London, Liverpool, and other cities. You have worked tirelessly in the halls of Congress and even in the White House to seek justice for the immigrant, documented and undocumented, in the United States. In Ireland, you have accepted the challenge of the refugee crisis and have ensured a welcome to many of those forced to leave their own country. You led the new Ireland in the fight for marriage equality. Ireland today is unique in the world as the first country to enact marriage equality by referendum. You led the government and your people to a new age where all of its citizens are cherished equally. In the spirit of the Choctaw and the Quakers, who provided food and aid to the Irish people during the Great Hunger, you have worked especially hard to provide food assistance to those African nations in the midst of famine. Your extraordinary leadership in Ireland, the European Union, and on the world stage is a source of enormous pride for the people of Ireland, and certainly for all of us Irish Americans. Quinnipiac University is proud to recognize an individual whose life is dedicated to service to his people and indeed the world, and to confer upon you, Enda Kenny, the honorary degree of Doctor of Humane Letters on this 24th day of September, 2015. Congratulations, Taoiseach. By the power vested in me by the Board of Trustees, I hereby confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters honoris causa with all the rights and privileges pertaining thereto. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the podium, An Taoiseach, Dr. Enda Kenny.
Garamagov is fáilte of gachtan and seo. It's an old language, it's called Irish. It means welcome. You're all very welcome here. Governor Dr. Leahy, Ambassador Consul General, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it. To John Leahy, the journey to be here on this beautiful day in the fall in Connecticut started a long time ago. You kept faith and considerable patience and good humour. And here we are. One commitment followed through. And I'm glad that we are, so that I can pay tribute to you, John, for your vision for education and for your supreme dedication to Ireland and to the Irish. You were the Grand Marshal of the St. Patrick's Day Parade in 1997. It was the year that we marked the 150th anniversary of the Great Hunger. You were inspired, I think, to reflect on that event and on the values and the story of the 19th century Irish in America. Your exhibition in the Museum of the Great Hunger speaks for itself. They stepped off boats, and they might as well have been stepping into space, shocked, hungry, ill, confused, weak, dislocated. Home as they knew it was somewhere that they would probably never see again. If they were to have a home, they would have to make it here, anew, in what to them would have been then an alien country. So Christine Keneally's work, The Great Calamity, inspired and informed and challenged Dr. Leahy, as it has so many others. And now, thanks to the generosity of the Lender family, to whom Ireland is exceptionally grateful, this growing university now has an institute where scholars can come to debate the complexity, the causes, and the consequences of the Great Hunger, and all under Professor Keneally's direction. We live psychologically, socially, and even spiritually with its consequences. I come from a county that was the second worst affected by the Great Hunger. The images in the museum are places that still haunt when you go to visit them. And that experience that was lived or endured, was not just famine, but typhoid, fever, dysentery, eviction, mass movement of people within the island and eventually from its shores. All of it affecting the politics and the future of our small Atlantic island, and by extension, the American continent. 1 million dead, 1 million herded onto coffin ships, more than 3 million people forced to emigrate in the following 30 years. The Pope himself today, speaking to both houses, referred not just to statistics, but what they reflect, the lives and the deaths of real people. Here in the United States, the memory of the great wrong, of the Great Hunger, fueled Irish national sentiment and inspired a revolutionary generation. The Fenians, the Irish Parliamentary Party, the Home Rule movement, the Rising of 1916, and the fledgling steps taken by our country to achieve its economic and political independence was all, and in many cases, inspired and driven by what happened here by the people who stepped up their boats and, at Ellis Island. At home, it scoured just not the land, but the very idea of who we were. And as a consequence, it has made us resilient, caring, and generous, ubiquitous across America, with pockets of Irishness right across the world. Now, today at home, we are emerging from a very turbulent economic time that brought shock and pain and loss to every community and every family, though it be in a modern world. Our economy was on the verge of collapse. Tens of thousands of people lost their jobs. They faced lives where there was no work or no opportunity to go to. We lost our integrity, our reputation, our name. Thousands of our young people packed their degrees in beside their hopes and their ambitions, and once again left our shores to make a future in the UK, in Australia, in Canada, and most of all, here in the United States. But because of our tradition, because of our history, we faced up to that challenge and did it together, government and people, working side by side towards a single objective of sorting out our problems ourselves. And thanks to the sacrifices of the people, at last, we are now recovering and can see the signs of a rising economy. Today, our economy is being transformed. In fact, we are now, and will be again for the second year running, the fastest growing economy in the European Union. Every day, because of the movement of our people, we create new sustainable jobs, replacing those lost during that crisis. And over the next period of years, we expect to restore all of those that were lost and more besides. In terms of our recent emigrants, our loss was undoubtedly, in part, America's gain. And now we want our young people to have the opportunity to come home, because they and our children are our future. And we want them to have the best and to be the best at home in their own country. Something that even today is denied to so many. Our friends throughout the United States, and they are many, have kept faith and vigil with our country and our people in our difficulties. And for that, let me again publicly thank the people of the United States. No more than recently, with the tragedy that occurred in Berkeley, California, the support, the comfort, the succor, the consolation, and the assistance offered voluntarily by so many American people was an expression of the really deep, long-lasting bonds between our two peoples. Tomorrow, I have the honour of addressing the United Nations General Assembly on behalf of the people of my country. This will be one of the largest gatherings of world leaders in history as we launch a shared blueprint for a sustainable development for the next 15 years. The first opportunity of any generation to end poverty, and the last opportunity, probably, of any generation to attempt to save the planet. The UN Sustainable Development Goals will set out how all the nations of the world will work together to end extreme hunger and to end extreme poverty, to make sure that all our people have the opportunity to live in peaceful and in stable economies, to make sure that we protect that planet that we call home. It's a matter of pride, I have to say, as taoiseach of the Irish government, that Ireland was asked to co-facilitate these important negotiations with Kenya and did so professionally and efficiently in a very short time. Given our history, Ireland is particularly attuned to the experiences of men and women currently seeking refuge in Europe. We finished a meeting of the European Council last night at 1 a.m., where 28 leaders spoke in a united fashion about the difficulties and the challenges and the complexities that are faced by millions of people. In our generational memory, we know what it is like to have to flee, to leave your own place, to leave your own home, to be forced to leave everything and start again, and start anew with a new people in a new place. Visit the museum, see the faces, see the images. Are they any different from 1847 than they are in 2015 when you see the pictures on your screens from all over the world? We know what it's like not alone to seek refuge, but to long for a kind look, a kind word, recognition of our dignity and what I often say is our shared humanity. So we work with the European Union to make sure that we can help as many of these people as possible. We cannot and we will not look away. We lost thousands to the Atlantic, off Ellis Island and off Grosse Ile, and that's why my government took its decision to send some of our naval vessels to the Mediterranean. They've rescued 4,000 people, approximately, from the waters of the Mediterranean over the last number of months. So we know what it's like to deal with that reality, to live on another person's shore. Our people, and these are people motivated not by cheap sentimentality, but by real sentiment that recognizes in men and women and children that we are quite literally kind. That is why in zones of conflict around the world, it is often an Irish hand that keeps that peace. It is why in areas of famine, it is an Irish voice that brings hope and that brings comfort and consolation. And it's why Ireland is absolutely committed to leading the fight against global hunger. And that's why we will continue to focus our aid on the poorest countries in Africa and wherever else we can assist in that regard. Yes, we are only a small island, but 70 million people around the world identify as Irish, and who identify as Irish are genuinely a force to be reckoned with. Here in Connecticut, in this great part of the United States, 1 in 5 is of Irish heritage. And that heritage and the pride and hope at the heart of that heritage is what brings us here today. And I want to say to you, Dr. Leahy, and to all associated with Quinnipiac University, bless you for what you've done. Congratulations on the marvellous work and the progress that your university is making. And I commend you for the interest in Ireland, for the fact that students from here travel to Maynooth and to Cork every year for a semester so that we understand the personalities of our people and strengthen those bonds in a very modern sense. I want to thank you for this honorary degree here in Quinnipiac. I accept it proudly in memory and honour of the, of the million men, women and children who lost their lives in the Great Hunger. I accept it in the name of the millions of others who sought refuge and made a new home in the United States and elsewhere. And I accept it in honour of the thousands and thousands of Irish people who set sail across the Atlantic in search of a new life, only to meet early death and committal to the ocean. Every time I cross the Atlantic, every time I make this transatlantic journey, as President Kennedy said when he spoke in Dublin and in Shannon, as the poet referred to the bowl of bitter tears, I remember those people, as I know you do. And the institute here, which is a brilliant institute, keeps the flame of the memory of those people alive. And that's a flame that burns eternally as a symbol of hope, a symbol of comfort, the possibility of deliverance, and indeed of redemption itself. Thank you. May it be a beacon of humanity to the world, and as I say, of the measures destined for our soul. Gaudeamus igitur. Thank you.
Taoiseach, thank you so much for those very thoughtful and eloquent and moving and inspiring words. And I particularly thank you for the generous comments about Quinnipiac University. We are honored by your presence here and grateful for the support of our university's various projects in Ireland, particularly your support for Museum Ungotumor. If the audience would please stand at this time and remain standing, and the platform party will recess from this room. And once the platform party has recessed, you're all invited to join us for a reception on the 10th, just outside this building. Again, thank you for coming. We look forward to seeing you at the reception.